In 2012, I attended Wizard World in Austin, Texas, and it was there that I had the opportunity to talk with Michael Biehn. I couldn't wait to talk to the guy that played Johnny Ringo in the movie Tombstone and Kyle Reese in The Terminator. But he told me there's another character at times that seems to be even more popular with fans, and that is Dwayne Hicks in the movie Aliens. Those are three great action movie characters, and he still gets approached by fans about all three of them.
The thing that is kind of cool about those three movies is that I get like 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old children, that'll come up to me and say, Hicks is my favorite character, or Aliens is my favorite movie of all time, and they'll be 20 or 25 or whatever, and they weren't even born when we made the movie, so it's kind of like I've kind of gotten older now and realized that those three movies really carry kind of a classic feeling that resonates not only with the culture that we made it with, but now 20 years later, and maybe 30 years later for the Terminator, and maybe 30 years from now. So it's pretty rewarding to be in those movies, and of course, two of them were Jim Cameron movies, and Cameron's brilliant, and got to give credit where credit is due there on those two. But Tombstone's kind of the same way, especially down south a lot, in Texas, and a lot of Arizona, and New Mexico, and a lot of places like that. They just love that movie, and they love Johnny Ringo. And I had the same experience with kids who say, Johnny Ringo is my favorite character, and they're 12. We made it, and they were born 10 years later.
Well, then you ask, are you old enough to watch that movie?
Yeah, well, but there are a lot of parents that let their children watch Aliens at 8 and 10, and that's obviously their decision. I have children, and I've always let them watch stuff pretty early and stuff that I'm in, because I can explain to them while we're watching the movie what the special effects are, and I can show them the Terminator, and they know their dad's sitting right next to them, but they grew up to be okay kids.
Well, I understand that when it came to auditioning for Terminator, you'd come from another audition where you had a southern accent kind of tied to your voice, and it made it a little more tricky to audition for Kyle Reese, but you managed to be able to work back in another call, and then you got the part.
Yeah, well, that's true. It was actually, it was Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and I went down, and there was I was rehearsing. I wasn't rehearsing it. I hadn't gotten cast, but it looked like I was going to be cast in it. So they had me all morning, and I was down there, and I was doing that with a southern accent. And I left there directly to go read for Jim Cameron and for his movie. And the feedback that I got from him was that they really liked me a lot, but they thought I was too regional, was the word that they used. And my agent said, well, what do you mean regional? And I said, well, he's southern, He's got an accent. No, he doesn't have an accent. What are you talking about? So I went back again, and the southern accent was gone, and I guess it just kind of had stuck with me because I'd been doing it all morning, and they pretty much cast me after that second reading.
That's cool. Well, you approach all of your roles with a lot of professionalism and immense focus, and as far as getting into character for Kyle Reese, you talk about an intense film with a lot going on and a lot on the line, the end of the world, basically. I would assume that had to be an exciting role to play, but also exhausting at the end of the day.
Well, I was young for one thing, and I was having a lot of fun. Linda Hamilton is, I fell in love with her when I was making the movie, and she was wonderful to work with. So I really never thought of it as exhausting. It was all nights. It was all shot downtown L.A. And to me, running around with guns, being, dragged behind racing cars and the shooting cars that have got cameras on them and stuff, it was just like a lot of fun, really. I was young. I was 28, I think. And it was more fun than anything else. I never really thought of it as exhausting or tiring or anything else. It was just a lot of fun because, I'm shooting guns, I'm shooting shotguns, I'm jumping up, I'm blowing him through the window, I'm racing those cars around, and then there's a love story, that was there to play. And so that was like That and Johnny Ringo, I mean, from a protagonist to an antagonist, I mean, the greatest role I ever played, I felt, was Kyle Reese, because he was not only this tough fighter from the future, really, and this military-like mindset, but he was also, in love with this woman. And I think that's really one of the reasons why the Terminator is as successful as it is because it has this strong female character, as all of Jim Cameron's characters do.
If I read correctly, there was one time where one of your car chase scenes was so intense you pulled the steering wheel off.
Yeah.
And with things like that happening, did you find it hard to go home and drive in your own car without thinking you're being chased, or not go over the speed limit a little bit?
Actually, I mean, we were being towed by a camera truck, and, I had a hold of this steering wheel, and of course I wasn't even really driving. I mean, the camera truck was pulling us, and I was doing the scene, and I was like so intense that it wasn't the real steering wheel anyway. And I, was yelling at her, "The Terminator, is coming after you," and the thing just came off in my hands. And of course it was a cut, but if I had been like really good, I could have just handed it to her and say, "Here, you drive," and it would have been great for a bloopers reel. But I wasn't that quick at the time.
That's great. Well, this was such a unique and groundbreaking film when it was released, and some might have not been able to see how great it was going to be on paper, especially when you got to sell to a production company. I got these robots coming in from the future and whatnot. What was it that drew you to the role of Kyle Reese and being in the film Terminator?
When I met Jim, they offered me the role, and then, Jim took me down to Stan Winston's shop, and he showed me all the models that they were doing, and I could tell Jim was real serious, and I liked the love story aspect of the movie, and, I thought it was kind of risky because at that time Arnold wasn't a big star, and when I told my actor friends I was doing a movie with him, there was more guffaws than there were, "Oh, great, you're working with Arnold," like these days. He's really proven himself as an actor, over the years as a movie star, but at that time he really wasn't, But mostly it was because of Jim Cameron and the way that he, the confidence that he had, and he had all these drawings and how he was going to shoot it. And I went down to Stan Winston's shop and storyboards and all this kind of stuff. So mostly it was because of Jim, and then the script, and Linda. Yeah.
Of course, Linda.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you know better than anybody, chemistry with two people like that means everything. It can make or break the whole film. What was it about you and Linda that you think worked so well on that film and make it work as well as you did?
Well, it's not about me and Linda. It's about Linda, really. She, as everybody will tell you, is just a very warm, generous, giving, empathetic person, and she is just really lovely, and it makes you feel good to be around her, and I don't see how you can spend much time around her without falling in love with her, which I did. I mean, there was never anything that we never hooked up or anything, but she's just a great soul. Some people have just got that kind of it factor, and she just was very warm, and she's very lovely and loving, and she's very kind of touchy-feely, and hugs and kisses, and she's wonderful.
That's great. What did you think about the sequels of the film that came on after yours?
Well, T2 was good.
Yep.
And after that, I never saw T3. I started watching T4, and I couldn't really figure out what was going on, and it was all loud, and it was confusing. So I just watched about 20 minutes of it and turned it off. You just don't follow Jim Cameron. It's not fair, really, to let McG direct a movie and expect it to be like a Jim Cameron movie. And, it's just tough to follow Jim Cameron. I wouldn't want to do it if I was a filmmaker.
I have to talk to you now a little bit about Johnny Ringo.
Okay.
And this had to be not only a great part, but a really good experience. I mean, you talk about Linda and how great she was to work with. You had a pretty powerful cast in this film, too, and that had to be fun to be on the set with Kurt Russell and Sam Elliott and Bill Paxton and all the great people you got to work with on that film as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great part also. I mean, I think that, again, that's a movie. Val Kilmer was really brilliant in the movie, and like you said, Bill, and there's so many smaller parts in that movie if you look carefully, and you see, Billy Bob was in it, and Yeah, Billy Zane was in it, of course. Jason Priestley's in it, and so it had an incredible cast, and it was a great role to play. And I always played Johnny Ringo as kind of a guy who was bored with life and just wanted some excitement in his life. And his idea of excitement was a gunfight, with the Earps. And that scene where he calls out Wyatt Earp is true. I mean, but first of all, Johnny Ringo didn't shoot any priest in the head like they have at the beginning of the movie. Completely made up because they wanted to make him a bad guy. And there's a lot of history there that's kind of been rewritten. And, the Earps are these heroic guys, and the Cowboys are these bad guys. And that's not really the way that it was. It was kind of like a feud between, the Earps that moved into town trying to take over the town that these guys already kind of had control of. But there's a moment that I have that is one of my proudest moments, and I think as an actor, at the end when Val says that he's up for a gunfight, and I say, all right, Lunger, I got an expression on my face and in my eyes, which is one of my finer moments on film, that kind of that sparkle that I have in my eye that goes, oh, I'd love to do a gunfight.
Yeah, I remember that look.
Yeah, so
it's a great scene.
Yeah, it is a good scene, yeah. And that's why, people ask me about working with Val, and I really enjoyed working with him, and we choreographed that scene together. The two of us went out the day before while they were shooting some Earp stuff, and decided instead of doing a regular stand-up gunfight like every other movie that's ever done a gunfight has done before, where they're standing about 15 feet away from each other, that we'd be up real close and we'd do that circling deal, and we had the whole thing worked out, and we rehearsed it before we started shooting it. So, people always ask me about Val, and I always say that I find him to be a really dedicated and passionate actor.
Well, and you guys, I mean, that's one of the cornerstones of the whole film, is that great rivalry that you and Doc Holliday have. You can tell that you guys worked really hard and really well together on those, because from the moment you guys meet at the faro table for the first time all the way through the end, it's pretty intense. But there's mutual respect for one another. They're enemies, but there's that hesitancy whether to go through, because you guys know that you're both killer gunfighters, and whereas Johnny could beat just about anybody else, you've got that kind of mutual respect for Doc Holliday, and someone's going to win at the end of the film.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what else to add to that, because, I mean, you really kind of hit it right on the head, and it was a great script, actually. I mean, Kevin Jarre wrote the script, and the script that he wrote and the film that eventually was released are really two completely different things. I mean, the script was about 135 pages, meaning the movie would have been over 2 hours. Kevin, who wrote the script, and was fired off the job about 3 or 4 weeks in. Then they brought in another filmmaker to finish the movie. So it was kind of a mess at times, but it turned into a really good film, basically because George Cosmatos was the director that they brought in, knew how to make things look visually very beautiful. He wasn't a real story guy, he wasn't a real actor's director, but he was a real visual director. And then, of course, you have all these great actors, and you have this great material for the actors to play, so you don't need an actor's director, because you've got great actors playing great parts, and everybody just shines in that movie as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you're still working really hard today. I know you've got a film that you've worked not only in front of the camera but behind the scenes as well. What are some of the things that people can see you in now and here in the near future?
Well, I did a movie called The Divide. Right. It is opening January and in theaters, and it's basically a psychological thriller that was basically about 7 or 8 people that are stuck in a bunker together after a nuclear holocaust, and they can't really go out because of the radiation fallout and all that type of thing, and things are turning ugly really fast, and it's a kind of a Lord of the Flies type of story. Real actor's story, very, very brutal, very, very hard to watch, because people die, there's nothing to do with the bodies have to be cut down, they have to be thrown in this toilet-like thing, and And The Divide is directed by Xavier Gens, and I think it's a psychological horror film is what it is, and it's very brutal to watch, but it's shot beautifully, and it's got a wonderful score, and some great performances in it. Milo Ventimiglia, who was in Heroes, is just out of this world in this movie. There's a kid named Michael Eklund who's great, and Rosanna Arquette just tears it up. Courtney Vance is in it, Courtney B, and he's great in it, and so some great performances from actors, and I'm just real proud of the movie. I'm real excited about it.
And you have The Victim.
And they have The Victim, which basically I wrote and went into pre-production, and we did a 3-week pre-production while I was writing the script, and then rolled into a 12-day shoot, and Jennifer produced it, and I started, and it's kind of a trashy exploitation movie, kind of based on like the Grindhouse type of movies that I did. I'd worked with Robert Rodriguez here in Austin, and got the idea that I'm just going to make something down and dirty. Got a little bit of money, but I got all the control, and I had the ability to make a movie and make all the artistic decisions, and make all the production decisions, and make all the decisions about who we sell it to, when we sell it, and how much we sell it for. So it's kind of my movie in a way. It's our movie in a way, and a lot of people helped me out, but we had a very short period of time to do it in, and our website is grindhousethevictim.com, and if you go to that website, you'll see it's just been getting the reviews. I mean, I couldn't write better ones for them myself. They're just kind of out of this world. Everybody enjoys it. It's a fun little movie, not to be taken very seriously. It's like the exact opposite of the Xavier Gens movie, which is kind of makes you think. You walk out of the theater kind of feeling beat up. This is just Pulp Fiction, meant to be fun. And there's basically I had no money, and I had to figure out what I could exploit, and so I looked over at Jennifer and asked her if she'd get naked for me, and she said yes, so I said, okay, well, I can exploit that, and asked her if she had any friends that would get naked, and she said, well, Daniel Harris might do it, so we got Daniel Harris to get naked.
You had connections.
And so then I figured, Dirty Cops was always good, and drugs, and I had enough budget for a little bit of torture and a little bit of action, and then I said, I'll just throw in a serial killer too, and I wrote it in 3 weeks, and while we were in pre-production, and we shot it in 12 days, and it's been bought overseas, and it's been bought by some territories, and we're real happy with the way that it's proceeding, and it's going to end up at a big company. I can't really say who it is at the moment, but it's going to end up at a big company, and I think it'll end up, everybody will get a chance to see this movie, and
Well, we'll look forward to that and all the film projects you have coming up. It's not a shock that you have so many fans. You do a lot of great work, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you, Michael. I appreciate you taking the time.
You're welcome. Thanks.